Disclaimer, this video is educational and informative in nature. Do not contact anyone shown in this video. Also, this video is discussing steroids. Do not use steroids. This is entirely for educational and entertainment purposes only. Okay, obviously the same disclosure on this video as all of the ones that we've done before. This person likely isn't a bad person or encouraging bad behaviors. Rather, they're just a really good example of what happens when you do harmful things to yourself. Again, great person, most likely. It's just the choices that she's made in life probably aren't reflective of that. We're gonna go through kind of a retrospective on this gal here.
Hey guys, just finished up doing cardio, so I'm eating my food now, which is like I said, tuna and sweet potato, and it is really disgusting. So I'm gonna show it to you. This stuff is like paste. It's really terrible, but it is what it is. So, and we need it for fuel, and it's a good source of protein, carbs, right after you work out.
She goes by Fit and Sexy Bodies 1 on Instagram, and her claim to fame is clearly one of abstract appearances, which I don't think she really planned for. Let me just show you one of the videos that is similar to many of the ones that have gone viral for her. It's basically just her talking there, sitting and discussing what she's eating or like what she does to stay lean or bodybuild or something like that, and goes down this trail of talking about it. It doesn't really matter, but the people in the comments, boy, do they care. It doesn't take you a rocket scientist to tell that Instagram is the kind of place where you do not want to post reels like this. People just bust out the worst kind of jokes in any chance they get to get a little bit of clout on Instagram, or just because it seems like Instagram is just a crazy place for this. The stuff my algorithm feeds me is literally every single day making me lose faith in any hope that humanity can recover. And it's not the posts that people make themselves on Instagram, it's just the comments. The comments are brutal. Posting something like this isn't inherently bad, of course. She's not doing anything wrong, but it's just the comments and attraction her posts get that make it what it is. And obviously people aren't commenting about how it's so helpful that she explained what she's eating. They're commenting about her physical appearance. Now, in complete honesty, I'd put my entire crypto wallet on the fact that she's probably a really great person. And of course, her personality isn't her topical issues, which, to be clear, the issues here all stem back to steroid usage, very clearly. Laura Brown is no slug in the bodybuilding world. She's competed many times before I was even in high school, but this wasn't the beginning of her journey. This is just as far back as I was able to see with the wonderful interweb. So at least as far back as I could formulate thoughts, Laura has been bodybuilding in some capacity or another. She's obviously, since before I was in high school, been taking some of this Azul as well, a bit of the PEDs. This could have been mild usage or very aggressive usage. We really don't know. Either way, length of exposure to either mild or aggressive dosage at this point in time, I mean, we're talking 20 plus years here, could be deleterious. There'd be massive changes in any human at that point, and this would even be for a male. She's now 55 years old in 2025, and saying this would really be no big issue, but the fact of the matter is she doesn't look quite 55 anymore. She looks closer to 60 plus, and I think there is a lot of things that are converging as to why that is. In videos like this one, you see that she's genuinely trying to pitch her coaching, and you can't help but notice some of the modifications, the extreme things that have happened to her body, which are clearly a byproduct of steroid usage. So let's just take a moment to talk about what I mean without involving her as a person, but just her features as a topical conversation between you and I.
Oh guys, it's such a beautiful day out here. I've had some storms move through over the weekend and into Monday, so today is nice and pretty. It's fairly windy, as you can tell with my hair. Not too warm yet. I'm sure that'll change as the day goes on. So any of you guys living in Florida will enjoy the beach if that's where you're going today. Hope you guys are having a great day. Okay guys, we're getting ready to head to the gym. We're going to take Vixen this morning because it's been raining and we don't take her out in the rain, so she's ready to go.
We'll use this video as an example, which you can even see a pretty sick 300Z, rare vehicle at this point, but that's besides the point. Her skin texture is wildly leathered. Her hairline is almost fully receded, and her cartilage has hypertrophied, even in her nose, her ears, not to mention that her jawline is completely enlarged and square. Her hands are actually shockingly big, like shockingly big if you ever see them waving around in some of these videos. Pretty insane. Saying this, I know, sounds awful, and I'm not doing it as an insult or a besmirch harsh to this individual whatsoever. These are just really important points to make because they're the critical features of basically every video that we talk about. They're the byproduct of the lifestyle as you've lived it. We've talked about young people hopping on steroids, but what happens when these girls are doing this for 10, 12, 15, 20 plus years? What are the side effects that we warn about? This is a great visualization of those things. So let me break this all down. We're going to get a bit technical here. This is a very good technical video.
Yes, science!
Before I do that though, I just need to ask you a serious favor. We have a ton of amazing people on this channel. Subscribers, I love you already. If you're one of the very many people who aren't subscribed watching this video right now, make sure you click the subscribe button. It helps out tremendously. You honestly have no idea how big of a deal YouTube makes this. All it takes you is a couple seconds. I would really appreciate it. More than 70% of you do not subscribe. Click that button right now. Let's get into the technical stuff. First, our hairline, which again, this is not me making fun of her, just very clearly, you have to think of each hair follicle as a little factory. The boss is a protein called an androgen receptor. The board of directors who calls the shots is DHT or dihydrotestosterone. And when DHT starts shouting from above, the boss gets really sensitive and starts calling the shots down on the follicles. The follicles start to panic. They start downsizing, getting laid off, and want to quit their jobs, so to speak. At least it's a really rough way to put it, but it's kind of exactly what's happening. Now, when you look at somebody balding, you usually don't see that same process happening on the back of their head, not the top back, but like the back of their head. This is because that real estate is generally lower in androgen receptor density, as well as it seemingly doesn't have as much localized 5-alpha reductase. Again, the enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT, which is usually the main culprit in miniaturizing those follicles. Secondly, those frontal follicles up here where you see her hairline receding actually have much less aromatase, another enzyme that's responsible for cleaving up testosterone into estrogen. Now, estrogen, uniquely enough, shown by research, is generally protective of hair follicles due to its antioxidant properties, assumedly. And this has definitely been a part of why you see some of that frontal hairline taking hit. A lot of the reasons why you see male bodybuilders completely balding from front to back. DHT, dihydrotestosterone, also nudges the tissue around the follicle towards inflammation and fibrosis. You essentially get a halo of collagen and thick tissue around that upper follicle, which essentially strangles it. Mechanistically, androgens drive tumor growth factors up inside the dermal papillae cells, and reactive oxygen species are involved in that signal. Over time, essentially, the soil of your scalp gets dry, it gets rough, and more blood flow becomes a problem, so less nutrients are delivered to that area, less circulatory function, and eventually those follicles just die. But moving on to sort of another topic as to why skin ages, especially in women that we see taking steroids so quickly. They look like they can age 10 years in like 10 months, actually, not even joking. This is a very complicated topic and it's multifactorial, but again, all of those loose strings tie back into steroid abuse. When people say leathery skin, you'll hear me say that a lot. They're not just being poetic, right? There's actually a good definition behind the structural change to the dermis, which is the skin in basically 2 layers deep, that is worth caring about. You have your epidermis, which is like the thin outer layer of your skin, and then your dermis, which is the thicker, more loaded with collagen and elastin version of your skin. That's actually kind of the scaffolding and what makes your skin look old or young. If you have a healthy dermis, you generally have really good looking skin. Problem is that steroids, androgens specifically, hit that scaffolding in multiple ways at a cellular and hormonal level. For instance, estrogen keeps that scaffolding really thick and robust and elastic. You take that away by excess use of androgens and you're left with a frayed, dried up, stiffened scaffolding, and you can start to see that pretty quickly in somebody. Estrogen boosts dermal levels of collagen, type 1 and type 3 collagen, and this improves epidermal thickness and generally the hydration of one's skin. Actually, like literally hyaluronic acid in the skin gets improved due to estrogen levels. This is why it's generally not advised as a male to floor estrogen levels when you're on cycle, because there's lots of repercussions that you can face at a cellular and non-cellular level from this. In cases where we see in clinicians that patients have really low estrogen, they tend to very quickly see skin thickness drop year after year once estrogen has become too low. And when women are taking performance enhancing drugs, steroids, they're almost always always taking dihydrotestosterone derivatives, which the problem here is these are estrogen neutral. They don't increase estrogen, but they do suppress the natural and endogenous production of it. So you basically have a negative feedback loop without a positive feedback. You have no estrogen coming in, but you have signaling to tell estrogen to stop coming out. Over years and years and years of exposure to this, you can see where the problem develops. This isn't even everything though. Like this, it gets so deep, and this is why I try to warn everybody about this stuff versus letting them do it, I guess, right? Androgens directly hypertrophy sebaceous glands and crank up sebum output. More oil equals more oxidation on the surface of your skin, equals more chronic low-grade inflammation that roughs texture up over time and definitely feeds acne as well. Then on top of that, you have the fact that high-dose anabolics raise reactive oxygen species, or ROS, and deplete antioxidant defenses within the human body. That accelerates dermal protein damage and sets off enzymes that chew up the scaffolding. In translation, your collagen and elastin get nicked faster than they would have ever before on a natural timeline. But this, even without drugs, can happen in certain individuals based on just their diet alone. And funny enough, it's commonly a bodybuilder's diet that will do this kind of thing. Bodybuilders notoriously eat high levels of protein and high levels of carbohydrate together. It's actually one of the best ways to put on muscle, but there's a problem with that when it relates to longevity and especially biological aging. Sugar plus protein equals what are called advanced glycation end products. These essentially mess with or with collagen fibers. It makes them brittle, non-functional, and mechanically like dried leather. On top of that, really high insulin output, really high oxidative stress from the steroids, really high likely development of these advanced glycation end products. You have a mess that is unstoppable. But of course, this doesn't just stop here. This is just a part of the problem. We discussed hair loss, we discussed skin aging, but there's more. What about the cartilage? What about noses? You often see really big noses on bodybuilders or really big ears. The thing is, when you're using these performance-enhancing drugs, growth hormone, IGF-1, androgens at a very high level, you're literally remodeling bone and cartilage. The nose, jaw, ears are prime targets because those tissues never really stop changing throughout your life. And androgens are essentially going to be throttling that all the way up 24/7. We're going to go through this briefly because we talk about it a lot. I don't mean to bore you guys, but the mandible has a lot of androgen receptor density, and the bone cells there, or the osteoblasts, are really receptive to it. And androgens stimulate periosteal apposition. That's the outer surface of the bone thickening. Then the nose, ears, and other cartilage components all respond to androgens as well. It's a type of hyaline cartilage that is really, really responsive to androgens. All of these tissues have androgen receptors, and it's why SARMs, selective androgen receptor modulators, were so promising, because they were proposed to be highly selective towards muscle tissue and skeletal bone mass, as opposed to all of these other things that we're talking about. Also, ears and noses, such a weird conversation. They don't have any true like growth plate closure like the rest of our body does. And so they can keep growing throughout life and continue to get stimulated, especially when you add anabolics to speed that all up, unlike the other components of our body. Unlike true bone mass in humans, generally it's capped off at a certain point, besides some very unique areas. Cartilage will always develop depending on the stimulus that's applied. And especially something that Connie, that we've talked about before, can only cope with as the only reason for facial structure is changing, the loss in facial fat is also a feature here. It'll make the jawline, your ears, facial features stand out a lot more. This is generally in response to androgens changing fat disposition on the body. You'll lose fat and gain fat in odd places once you offset the androgen to estrogen ratios, so to speak. Now, the other thing that's really important here, and I promise I'm almost done, this is really important, is the skin tint, okay? The skin tint this is a hallmark of somebody using steroids. You see this reddish, purplish kind of skin. You see it in cases like this one, which will be for sure a future video.
Eh sì ragazzi, è proprio vero. Giudicare un libro dalla copertina è sempre sbagliato. Si commettono degli errori clamorosi.
But there are several reasons for this, and one of them is at the most like pinnacle of concern when I see this kind of thing. So for one, androgens and other PEDs, of course, massively interact with nitric oxide production, causing more blood flow to flush the skin. Think of a finger, for example. There's a diagram. We'll just throw it up. The finger without oxygen is going to turn more white. The finger with a bunch of oxygen and blood delivery is going to turn more red. Very obvious, right? More blood in the finger means more red. but that's just one side of it. Anabolic steroids often stimulate erythropoietin production, and this alone is going to cause polycythemia, which is the, overproduction or excessively high hematocrit, which means you have more red blood cells per, blood vessel, right? There's more in there than there would normally be. Well, you could imagine more red blood cells means the blood is darker. If you've ever actually seen, like, military stuff for me here, but if you've ever actually seen somebody who's really dehydrated bleed, their blood is almost always a lot darker than somebody who's very well hydrated, and that's because the concentration of red blood cells in their blood is a lot higher due to their dehydration. This is the same concept. But what we're really looking at as problematic here is in extreme cases, you see this in Liver King a lot, or especially back when he was like caught as fake natty, the purplish skin. This suggests venous congestion, which is terrible. Blood pools and it gets congested in areas of your skin and it can't return. Oxygen levels drop, the blood itself oxidizes, and it turns this bluish hue, which is not good. That means there's some sort of circulatory dysfunction, and this is one of the biggest issues you'll see in men and women that they'll flex about online, doing a set and they turn purple. It's not cool, bro. That's like a genuine concern. Now, all this might seem fine, when a girl's just taking 10 milligrams of Anavar, like that's a small dose or anything. And sure, it's all cute and shit until this stuff starts happening, right? And the crazy thing is, and I know it sounds so crazy to you maybe who's never used Anavar or any of these things before, but when you start, the transition from where you start to the extreme, it's really hard to gauge while you're in it. And it sounds so insane to say that because, like, how couldn't you hear your voice change? How couldn't you see these features change on your body? But I promise you, when you're in that tunnel vision and you just have that one goal, that one thing in mind, you sort of forgo concern with all of the other things that you're experiencing and allow things to happen that are maybe outside of your comfort zone in order to pursue said goal. And the delusion is always still that these people will justify everything. I could explain mechanism all day here. I could explain science, show you studies. We could walk through case studies of our own, and people would still, on a daily basis, say that I am the dumb one and that they're right for doing what they're doing. Which at the end of the day, hey, maybe they are right. If that's their goal, they're chasing that trophy, the $5 trophy, that's their desire, so be it. I'm all good with it. So be it. You know what I mean? If that makes them happy, that is the purpose of life, to move through time as happy as you possibly can be. But I have a very strong suspicion that that isn't what's making these people happy. And more importantly, I think when women tend to start these things, they don't understand the implication of what the end point is when they do start. And seeing it here in people like this, which again, I'm telling you, I bet this person's a wonderful person, but they're a great example as to what happens when you go down this path too far for too long. They end up down a whole different route than they would have liked to have gone down. But once you've kind of dug that hole too far, you're looking back up and you're like, well, shit, man, it's further to go back up than it is to just keep going down. And so you keep going down. And that's the problem, or at least one of the very many problems in this industry. I don't know. It's kind of some wild shit if you ask me, but I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this is crazy? Do you think this is absurd? Am I right about my opinions on what's going on here with this lady and others? Or am I just a ginger who is hopeless? Probably the latter, to be honest with you. Very much likely the latter, but we'll see what you guys say. You'll probably say the latter too, to be fair. Fuck.
People aren't creeped out by gingers. I am.